introduce you, because you sit there and you think, about me. At least that's what I do. And when you get introduced, you will know what I'm talking about. I am so glad to be here today. One really selfish reason I'm just going to say is because this is the start of Black History Month. And I think that while I celebrate and make Black history every single day of my life, I do, I'm excited to be a part of your celebrations. Not that this chapel is about Black history, I'm just glad to be a brown person coming and talking to you today. So thanks for having me, and thanks for all looking like you're awake and interested in what I'm saying. So I was going to introduce myself a little bit further, and I thank you, Jennifer, for that wonderful introduction. It's interesting about, 23 years ago, last month, I arrived at Judson by accident. Yeah, it was by accident, because I started that fall at a bigger university in another Midwest town to study journalism, and let's just say it didn't work out, okay? We're just going to go with that. It didn't work out. And so I came home when that semester was over, and I was challenged with, what are you going to do? Are you going to get a job? Are you going to go back to school? Wasn't going to be able to go back to that other school, and we'll just leave it at that. And so I was going to get a job or do something else. And it's interesting because a friend of mine was coming here the following year. And so she introduced me to Dan Smith, which that name is not going to ring very many bells. But Dan Smith was one of the most gregarious recruiters, shall we say, that Judson has ever had. And he heard about my dilemma. And he was like, we can get you in. So I'm thinking I had 6 months, right? I had 6 months to get my act together and join him at Judson College. I met him in December of 1989. And he was like, no. School starts in 6 weeks and we'll see you there. And I was like, wow. So 6 weeks later, I was here in the spring of 1990 by accident. And I didn't have very many claim to fame here at Judson. I did play tennis. I played tennis with the guys, actually. We didn't have a girls' team at the time. I think we got one by my senior year. So I played tennis. I was in one production in the Fine Arts Building. My first semester, I tried out for Tartuffe, and I got the lead, and so I never tried out for anything again, because, why mess with it? And so that was the spring of 90. And then my biggest claim to fame at Judson was One Voice. And you're probably like, what's that? Well, One Voice was a praise and worship team that I put together in my junior year after trying out for Servant. So I tried out for Servant. I don't know if you can still have Servant. Well, Servant was the official praise and worship team that went out and helped the recruiters bring people back to Judson every summer. Those people would travel all over the United States. So I tried out, and they didn't pick me. Yeah, they didn't pick me. So they were like, Denise, you got to come back next year. I said, okay, I'll come back next year. So I tried out again, and I still didn't make it. So they were like, Denise, you got to come back next year. And I said, no, thanks. I'm going to make my own. So we made One Voice, right? And we were not Servant, but we had a blast. And we traveled really all over Illinois, Wisconsin, a little bit of Indiana, and Michigan. So that was my claim to fame. And you should remember that story because it's very pertinent to what I'm going to talk to you about today. So if you fast forward from the time that I was sitting in your shoes to now, so much has happened. And one of the things that I recently did that I think got Jennifer's attention is I wrote a book. And my book is called From Here to There, 5 Steps to Doing Your Life's Work Every Day. So right now I know the first thing you're thinking is, what's life's work? I am going to define that for you. And I'm also going to frame up the rest of the talk. I'm going to talk from my book, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit differently than I have since I launched it. Because one thing, I don't have any regrets. I'm one of those people, like I live hard, play hard, and I never look back. And I'll tell you this, I wish that someone would have introduced me to a book like this. Only for an extra perspective. Because I come from a long line of people who work for other people. Everyone in my family, very good at working for someone else. Everyone in my family were either military or they worked for someone else. There was no one in my family that had their own business. And so, as far as I was concerned, that wasn't necessarily an option for me. And I'm here to tell you that it was, and it is, and I am in my own business. And so that is the main thing I want to talk to you about. I'm going to tell you 5 things that you're going to hear people say to you. And that really, these things you're probably already hearing, because you're at a time in your life when people are trying to tell you what to do while you're trying to do what you want to do. And so I just want you to absorb the 5 things that people are going to say to you, and then I'm going to combat or come alongside those with the 5 things I wrote in my book. All right? So I'm going to define life's work for you first. Life's work. If you Google this, and don't do it right now, because I know you all have phones and you all have smartphones. No, keep looking at me. Yeah. So if you were to Google life's work, you would get a lot of things. You wouldn't get a straight up definition though. You would get a ton of blog posts, you get coaches and books and guides, but you wouldn't necessarily get a definition. So even when I started to write my book, I had to kind of come up with a definition. So I'm going to read it because I still haven't memorized it even after all this time. All right, life's work. Using your unique natural abilities and acquired skills in an area of work that gives you a sense of accomplishment. Or doing work you are uniquely called to do based on your natural abilities and acquired skills. And after almost 20 years in the marketplace, I'm here to tell you that doing your life's work is much more fulfilling than doing work that someone else has for you. And I would say this, when I wrote this book, my primary target was people like me, people in their 40s, who finally start looking back on their life and reflecting, right? Because you don't have a ton to reflect on just yet. However, you are one of my targets, and I'll tell you why. Because if someone had told me to light into my, I won't say passion, but into my talents, to lean into my talents, and do work that was fulfilling to me, if they told me that then I wouldn't have had this whole process that I went through. And I don't regret it, but I'll tell you, listen to this, and listen to me good, because you have the rest of your life to get a job that you don't like, right? So it'd be better to start off doing something that honors your talents, that you can do every day and have peace. So we're going to start. So what did I say? 5 things that people will tell you, and then the 5 things that I've written about in contrast. So the first thing that people will tell you, especially now, especially college kids, find a career path. Has anybody heard that yet? Of course you have. Find a career. Don't you all have majors? Right? That's part of the career path. So people will say, get a major, get a career path. My first step in my book is find your voice. What do I mean by find your voice? I mean find your purpose. Right? Each of us were put on this earth for a purpose. To do something. To impact somebody. To impact something. It's funny. I spent the last 20 years probably dancing right outside my life's work. Because I have some clues about it when I was here at Judson. Absolutely. You heard the story that I told you about One Voice. I am a starter. I am that person who, when you want something done and you don't really know how to get there, I'm the person you call. That's me. I'm a starter. I'm also a connector of people. Not that this is something to brag about, but I have a friend from every era of my life on my Facebook. And I actually am proud of it, because I've got my 2nd grade best friend, and we actually talk. It's not just a, hey, we snoop on each other. We actually talk. She came to the party when I launched my book. I've got friends from every workplace that I've ever worked at, and there were a lot, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm a connector, and I'm a person who communicates. So I started to realize, even when I was here at Judson, those clues about those things I was getting at, what my purpose was. But really, it came down to that my purpose is to revolutionize relationships on planet Earth. I know that's like, ooh, that's big. But it's what I want to do, and it's what I know I'm called to do based on my skills and my abilities. And so I go about doing that every single day in one way or another. In fact, being here in front of you today is one of those ways. So I'm telling you, find your voice. Yes, you do have to pick a major, and yes, you do need to find something that you can do, but your purpose is much more important than finding a career path. Number 2, People will tell you that people are people and you just need to get used to it, right? Like, you know, your family's your family, nothing you can do about it. In my book I write, find your tribe. Find your tribe. Be intentional about the people that you have in your life, right? If you don't be intentional, then you'll just default to the people that are there. And I know this is hard to believe. When I was sitting there several years ago, some of the people that were the closest to me, I don't even talk to now. I know, shock, horror, but it's true. Unless you're intentional about keeping in touch with people and keeping the relationship, it's not just going to continue itself. The other thing, what I mean by being intentional with people is, I have always been one of those people who people are attracted to me. But I have to be selective about who are those people that get in and stay in with me. It's not a, hey, you just happen to be here at my workplace, and okay, you sit next to me, we're best friends. I'm very intentional about who I do life with. And that's what I write in the book. You have to be intentional. Now, one of the things you might be thinking is, but what about my family? Like my family of origin. I really can't do anything about that. And I know, because I have one of those families. But here's what I say to you. You can be intentional about that too. How much time that you're around them. People who drain you, people who might suck the life out of you, people who don't encourage you, those people have to go. Even if they're family of origin people. Small doses, that's what that's called. And that's what that's called. Small doses, not every holiday. Not every birthday. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later too. The other thing that people will say to you is stick to something, right? Find something you're good at and stick to it. I would say start something. Yeah, start something. Anything. Anything that you might enjoy, start something. Take risks. Because you are in a perfect spot to take a risk. You don't really make any money now, so you don't really have a lifestyle to keep up. This is the perfect time to do all those fun things that you want to do. And it's not just fun things, but it's exploring to figure out what your gifts are. And it's interesting because I was late 30s doing that, right? This book takes place mostly from 2008 till about a year and a half ago. So I spent most of my time kind of doing what I thought people wanted me to do and doing what I thought I should be doing. So this idea of starting something and taking risks. Now, I did take risks in a different way. The first 10 years of my career, I like to call the gypsy years, because I left Judson in the spring of 1993, and I went to work for the U.S. Soccer Federation, and that was the year before we were hosting the World Cup. The World Cup was here in 1994. It will be back. It will be back, and I'll be working there. But that's a whole other topic. Anyhow, 1994, the World Cup came, and I was working there. I went from there to living in Milwaukee and working for an ad agency. I went from there to Atlanta and working at the Centennial Olympic Games in 1996. Do you smell what I'm cooking? I was always on the go. I was always out there trying new things. I was always finding ways to express myself and do new things. And I'm saying to you, you should definitely do that. It's the second half of my career once I was married, and then I had a kid, and then I had another kid, that I wasn't quite as able to be as flexible as I had. So I'm saying that to you now, you need to start something. So when people are telling you to find something and stick to it, I'm saying you need to start something. Now we've come to the one that I want to spend the most time on. And that one would be, number 4, people will tell you, know what you're good at. Know what you're good at. Be able to articulate it. I say, commit to using your best talents daily. I'll say it again because you guys don't seem to hear me. Commit to using your best talents every day. So you might say, well, how do I do that? Or what do you mean? First of all, you got to know what your talents are. When people say that, they're right on. You do need to know. But knowing is not enough. Okay? So first of all,